Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Grey Duck Unfeathered podcast. I am your host, Chad Greenway, along with co-host Ryan Kulka, Grey Duck partner. And we have a couple special guests today. A couple of the OG partners, Jerry Schulz, Mark Cotter. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the pod.
These guys harebrained idea.
Yeah, I'm sure. I always say, people always ask me, how'd you get involved in Grey Duck? It's like, well, I used to have really bad friends. And that's how we got here. And we got this on this page. But today it's about lifting the veil, lifting the hood about our company. And I think part of that is just trying to tell people who we are and where the idea came from and how the idea come about at the genesis of this company. And now 8 years later, looking back, like, holy cow, how far we've come and the ups and downs we're certainly going to talk about over these next episodes. But we're excited to hear kind of the genesis story of, okay, Grey Duck vodka, Grey Duck spirits, where to get it started. And I'll throw it to you, Jer.
Boy, I'd like to say it was something really dramatic, but it was, 2017 Bears game. We were on the road. We got Keenum being our quarterback, just took over for Bradford.
Vikes are rolling.
Yeah, well, and we're like, on the cusp. Is it going to be a good season? It's like fourth week or whatever, and we're in there and playing the Bears, and Keenum throws to Rudolph, gets the touchdown, and breaks into the duck, what everybody knew was goose. And that's what he said very loudly, and you could hear it in the end zone. And all of a sudden, I'm from Illinois originally. I had no idea that wasn't correct, but all of a sudden it's a talker for a week hey, in Minnesota, it's duck, Grey Duck. And that's the first time I had ever heard that. Listened to K-Fan that week, and then you see it on ESPN with Randy Moss holding up a T-shirt with the great, duck, Grey Duck. I'm like, holy cow, this is kind of a big thing. And it was so kind of stuck in the back of my head. But what's also unique about that time is in 2017 is when they loosened the end zone celebrations.
Yep.
So if the NFL hadn't, loosened that up, I probably would not have seen that celebration. But we take it a step further, and it's a big deal. And I meet Mark and another partner, Jamie Cannell, at a bar, and I'm like, guys, I just can't get this out of my head.
Now, just for reference, stop Jerry. Jerry is our idea generator.
We'll call him the visionary.
Yeah, we'll call him the visionary.
Maybe give him that.
It's a lot of good, but mostly bad ideas.
Yeah, ask my wife; she would agree. But so we sat down at this bar, and I kind of tell Mark and Jamie, I said, I can't get this out of my head that everyone in Minnesota seems very passionate about Grey Duck, and there's already a goose vodka that exists. Why doesn't Minnesota have its own vodka, Grey Duck? And Jamie, being a lifelong Minnesotan, he said immediately, goes, we should have our own vodka. And he goes, I think it'll do very well if we do. So, we go into all these grand, I'm telling these guys, well, I think it'll be here, and I think it'll be there, and I think, so my mind's going 1,000. Well, Jamie was right on. Mark was a little slower to the dance. He kind of laughed at me.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
He laughed at
me
a little
there.
bit. But literally almost like the next day or so, we went and met an attorney and filed the trademark.
Wow.
And that's kind of how we got going as far as the idea being born.
So you all of a sudden have this harebrained idea, and it's so funny you bring that up about Kotz, about being the devil's advocate. He's always the devil's advocate in the group, and always
risk assessment.
Risk assessment guy.
Well, insurance guys.
Keep
everybody grounded.
Yeah. So maybe let's just jump to that really quick. Kotz, I'll send it to you. Is what were you guys doing at the time? Like, both of you. Like, what was your? Obviously, this was an idea, but you guys are making a living. You guys are doing other things. You have families. You have things going on. So what were you guys doing at the time?
We both had insurance agencies, so we worked together in the same office, so we knew each other pretty well and would hang out a lot of times. So we knew each other very well. But then he came up with this idea. We had this meeting, and it was just kind of a real crazy idea. To me, I mean, I've already talked about it. I'm a little more grounded, but we were talking about, we're going to do this. We're going to work with the Vikings. I'm like, guys, this is something. But then,
too much goose flowing in that.
Yeah, and we knew how to run a business. We just had never, selling insurance, you're selling a promise. You're not selling a product. So we didn't have that experience. We knew how to run a business. So then it's like, what is the next steps? What do we got to do? And it took a little bit. It took me probably 2 months before I even told my family that, because it was such a flyer. Come up with a vodka company.
So what is the first answer to that question? Is like, where do you go? Because at this point, you hadn't met with me yet.
No.
Or me.
Hadn't met with Ryan yet.
Yeah.
And so, what's the first problem you have to solve when you try to start a business? You have an idea. Like, where do you go?
Well, I think first was getting our, do we have a concept that we all can get behind? And Jamie and I were full in, and there was like $1,500 to file the trademark. So I went to Mark. I said, Mark, I'm writing a check today. Are you going to give me $500 or not? And Mark goes, I'm in. So it was just finally, he knew we were going. He's like,
knowing what you know now, it was a $500 investment.
FOMO.
But then it was, okay, let's get and my concept was, because I watched Kyle Rudolph for a long time. They did a really good story that whole season about him and his brother. And so I thought, boy, wouldn't it be cool if we could somehow find a way to get Kyle involved and give back to his charity, which we've done, thankfully, through our business. We'll get to that later. But so we tried to figure out a way can we get to Kyle? He had actually put out a beer for the Super Bowl that was supporting his charity. So I'm like, there's a way potentially with the liquor side, maybe we can figure it out. So we had some connections to his PR folks, and we had a meeting and went through that. So we learned that he couldn't do that based on his status in the NFL at the time.
But they loved the idea.
Yeah, they were all they thought this is great. But so we knew that wasn't going to happen. So then we started thinking about other ways. Is there someone else that we could get involved? And I'll let Mark kind of explain.
Well, you know Sean. So it's like that was a natural trend. There's a Minnesota tie here. There's a Vikings tie here. So that was you just retired. And my buddy played with you at Iowa, and fell NFL alum. So it's like
Sean Considine, if you're watching, shout out.
So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, do you have his number? And I know he ended up talking to you, and then we eventually got connected, some emails, and finally talked, and then we just ready to run with you.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. When I think about like everything that goes into a bottle and the juice and the label and the topper and the neck and everything you talk about bottle style. So now you actually have to go out and have a product. So where do you begin? Like when you know nothing about this, keep in mind, zero industry experience across any level, from logistics to ordering to product. Where do you go with that? Like, where do you start?
I think what helped is, so we were building our story. We knew what we wanted to do, and we felt that you were going to be involved in some way. We didn't know what way quite yet, but you would, if nothing else, you would go out and we could pay you to go out and do stuff for us.
Right.
We felt comfortable. So then we started going around, and the big thing we knew right away, we didn't have a business and we didn't have distribution.
Yep.
So we started making calls. We called, all the distributors that we could find in the phone book.
Now, did you think it was going to be easy? Did you have an anticipation of like, hey, we're going to make a call and we're going to get distribution, or did you just not having any knowledge of it?
I don't know if it was going to be hard or easy at the time. I've made a living making phone calls. When I started my first business, that's how I did it. So I wasn't afraid to pick up the phone and call and ask to see if there was, and tell them the story. Like, I think we have something, and here's why, and sell that story. But a lot of them were not interested, and we did get a meeting with one that was nice enough initially to take a meeting, and boy, did that guy beat the heck out of us. I mean, we went into that office, and he sat down, and you can tell he'd been around a long time, and we had a little storybook that we put together as far as our vision, what we're trying to do, and he just shook his head like, you guys are the dumbest. I won't use the word he called us. You guys might be the dumbest I've seen in a long time.
SOBs,
We're sitting here like all motivated, like, here's our story. This guy's
finally get a meeting.
Yeah.
Oh man, he just beat the hell out of us. He took us around that room a few times and said, you know how many vodkas there are in this market? You think anybody cares about your vodka? He goes, I don't care if Chad's involved. He don't care. He named other celebrities. He goes, I don't care. They don't care anything about your product. And I said, well, I think people do care about Grey Duck.
Yeah.
And there's that much it's important to Minnesotans. And I really believe that. And that's what kept me going, to have those conversations. Because I'll tell you, after that meeting, it wasn't easy to pick up the phone the next time, because he told me I was an idiot.
Well, I think that's one thing I think we should talk about right away as we keep going through our story, is from the genesis of the story of Grey Duck to where we're at now to our give back. It's always been about being Minnesotan, from the name Grey Duck and how important it is and how it's separated from every other state in the country. Like, we think about something different. Yes, it's a kid's game you're playing, but it's just the idea of like, we're up here in the north and the frozen country in the winter. We're kind of all in this together mentality. We get all of our product from Minnesota. Everything goes into it's Minnesotan. And we're very proud of that. And I think that's a focus. And it seems like that was maybe a focus from me in the beginning, of like the idea of like, Minnesotans are going to care about this.
Well, we were fortunate enough to find, so after going through all the major distribution outlets we could see, there was pretty much a one-man shop. And I talked to him prior, and he couldn't take me on. He was just running his own product at the time, one specific brand, and that's all he was doing. And I told him our story and said, hey, And he gave me some great tips, and then I circled back to the bigger ones, and they all said no. So I came back to him again. I said, "Hey, I'm struggling to find anybody." He goes, "You know what? I'll take you on," and he did, and that's what got us. At least now we had distribution figured out. Then we had to figure out, okay, who can put the juice in the bottle.
But was it going to be dead in the water? If this guy doesn't say yes and give us a chance, does it end there?
It may have ended there. Yeah, because you have to have distribution, otherwise you can't.
And that's why the liquor industry is so weird, because I don't think a lot of people know this. It's like you can't actually sell your own product that you make. You have to have that distributor that's going to go and sell it into these stores, which I think was something that I learned, and I'm like, oh crap. So you're kind of at the mercy of who's selling your stuff.
Yep, their distribution, how fast they can get it to you, how they're gonna take the orders, how they're gonna sell your product compared to other products they're also selling. We all know that stuff now, looking back, but I'm sure at the time you didn't. So let's talk about getting the juice then. So what we call the juice, and maybe Kos, you want to talk about that story and kind of again, I just always think back to we knew nothing, you knew nothing. I certainly knew nothing, and maybe mostly still don't know anything. So where do you go about finding the juice? Did it matter? Was there an ingredients list? Was there a taste you wanted? Or was it just like go out and identify a place that'll sell us juice and make it for us?
It was a little bit of everything, and it's like, how hard was it going to make? Where are we going to get it? What are we going to, what distillery are we going to work with, to get this thing going? And we just met with, I don't know how many we met, like 20, 30. I mean, every bottler that we could think of, we met just to gather information, what could do it. And then we even got to a spot where was what flavor profile do we want? And, something just kicked in my head that, just shows you how naive we were to the process. But we went one time where, the wild rice was Minnesota, it's tied to Minnesota.
Yeah, native product.
We thought, the grand venture, of coming up with a wild rice vodka and trying to figure that out. We met with there's a professor at the University of Minnesota that specializes in wild rice. So we met with them, and that's just how crazy that we were going. Yeah, just trying to learn and trying to what profile, and then we finally got to a bottler that liked our story and wanted to work with us, and then showed us all our options, and then here's what it would cost, here's the lead time to get this, and we finally landed on a product that we have used ever since.
That's unbelievable. So now maybe segue in a little bit. So then I get involved, right? Now we have a distributor, we have a place to make it. And now it's like, okay, how are we gonna get the product out there? And I can remember this is kind of when I started coming into the conversation, and we're trying to have conversations with, okay, Chad's gonna be involved. What's the vehicle to get people to know about us? And when I finally committed and kind of went all in, was there a strategy, an initial strategy from the marketing side I know you talked about maybe you use Chad and come in and I'll do this and do that. That was new to me. My whole life I've been a very transactional guy, right? If I'm going to come in and do a speech or come in and do a signing or come in, whatever, come into a company, it's like, okay, I come in, it's 2 hours, you hand me my check, I get out of here. So I had belief, the sweat equity piece of, hey, I'm going to get equity in a company, and that's going to be my investment is going to be me. My time, walk into stores, do signings. I think at the time we had talked about that, but again, not knowing how that was going to go. And so when you get the juice, talk a little bit about, before we jump to the next phase of when we actually launched, label. So logistics around finding a label company, like just research, meet with people, send artwork. Like, how did that thing come about, like with the initial logo itself?
And with the bottler that we were dealing with, we kind of used his resources and his relationships. He kind of pointed us in certain directions with like label companies, cap companies, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, we're insurance guys, we graphics, we're not artists. So we can't remember the name of the web, like logo tournament or something like that, where it's just you put out a concept, and then and you put out a reward, and then all these artists will come in and try to build this logo for you, and then you pick a winner, and then they get the money. And
love it.
We had a couple of different options, and I thought it was going to go. I think you and me were on the same page. We thought it was going to go one direction, and then Jamie was on this other side, and then we just put it out there with a partner of ours with some of their followers, and then put a vote. It's like, which ones? And it was overwhelming what we landed on, which is what that middle bottle was at that point. So that's how we got to the design of it.
Which is great. You kind of crowdsource the idea, crowdsource the logo, and then at the end of the day, we fall on something that people really fall in love with. real quick, just because I want to actually hear this from you too, is when you're doing the ordering for bottle, like what are we deciding on? Like, what are the things you can get that are different? I mean, glass, size, shape, top, neck. Like, go through maybe just like how you order product and what that looks like. So all different variations of things they can offer from a bottle standpoint.
Yeah, I guess when we got into the bottle, I mean, the one thing that, and a lot of liquor companies do this, is where the bottle sells the juice in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we went a little bit different direction to where we wanted the story, the concept to kind of sell the bottle versus sell the company versus just the bottle. So we landed on a stock bottle, which ended up being one of the better decisions we ever made, because then the big, thing that happened during the time that we launched a couple of years later was COVID,
right?
Which just drastically, I mean, we can have a whole episode talking about how COVID affected our business, good and bad.
Yeah, good and bad, right?
But we just landed at it. To me, it was lead times and cost. It's like, it's got to be easy to get, and obviously the cheaper the better.
Yeah.
And we did that with a lot of the products that we did. Thankfully, there isn't too much that goes into you got label, bottle, cap, so there isn't too much to order.
But you can see the progression. There's the OG bottle right there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can see where we started in all the different elements of the bottle. Even including this back label here now with the artists on it. It's like there's so much story you can tell and so many different things you can do with just some 5-6 different aspects of this bottle.
Yeah, and I think even last night I was in a store at a signing, and like some people don't even recognize that there's actually artwork on the back of the label. And you point out and people love it. And some people said, actually, I picked this bottle out because of the artwork on the back. And like, this is, again, conversation of just how we've expanded our brand, is bringing in local artists that can put up their work to say, hey, you want to be featured on our bottles? And again, just kind of focusing on the community, the give back, and how can we grow somebody's art with using our bottle. And it makes a really cool label that some people pay attention to and some people don't. So as the story progresses, I always think this is so funny about this conversation that we had with Total Wine, and how we originally got into a store. Distribution, juice, label, top, and one of my favorite stories is how we had, I'll let you guys tell it, I'll kick it to you, is the taped on label when you go and have a sit down. So maybe take it to that time in our life in Grey Duck.
So, again, like you said, we got the juice, we've got a distributor. So now we're just trying to learn, okay, how's the best way to approach different stores? How can we get this out in the market? And we had a connection to Jeff Bernard at Total Wine. Jamie had I don't know if it was a golf friend or somebody knew Jeff, and Jeff was willing to take a meeting and we were going in just to learn, is what I thought the meeting was about. So we had a printed out, taped on label.
Had you had meetings previous with other locations, retailers?
We had some calls and interest, but it was more, I think we're just getting ready to go into that phase, and we're ready to start to talk so the distributor that's working with us could, know what best way we can support him and try to help. And he maybe had some conversations as well in the market, but we were glad to get that meeting because obviously big chain, we wanted to learn
a lot.
Yeah, so we go in there with this bottle and a little bit of juice that our bottler had made for us at the time, just so we had a little something to sample potentially for other people.
So
Well, even back it up a little further. So I mean, we finally had some sample juice. We finally had a concept with what the bottle's going to kind of look like. And at this point, we had it on a bottle that our bottler was using. We did not even the bottle we had, but it was literally a label printed from a color printer. We cut it out, taped it on the bottle.
Not even a label, just computer paper.
It was double-sided tape just slapped down there. And again, we thought we were going to just learn something.
Walking into Total Wine like that.
We walk in with the bottle, and we had a kind of a concept, printed out. You're now committed, so we had that story more sealed down. So we walk in, and all of a sudden, there's like a couple managers with Jeff, and he's got a couple sommeliers there, and he's like, okay, we're gonna go back in this room. So now there's like, Total Wine has 6 people there. It's Mark, Jamie, and I in this room, and Jeff's a real nice guy. He's talking us through, and we're kind of walking through, well, here's what we're thinking and why, and we think it really matters. And these other people are taking this, and they got their spittoon, and they're doing all their stuff, and Jeff's here talking to us, and this other group's over here, talking, and all of a sudden Jeff goes, hang on a second, and he walks over to this group, talks for a couple minutes, comes back to me, Mark, and Jamie, and goes, yeah, we're going to place an order. And we're thinking we're going into this meeting just to learn, and all of a sudden this guy's ready to place an order, and we walk out of the room and get in the parking lot, and we're just looking at each other like in shock, like
Now
what the
what?
hell just happened? and then of course you're excited, but then you're like, oh well, he's probably going to order like a case, which would have been great. But we didn't want to get overly excited because we're probably like, okay, he told me the order's coming tomorrow. I'm going to order. He didn't say what the order's going to be. I'm thinking probably maybe a case or so. And he puts in a 50 case order to every store. After that initial, what we thought was a learning meeting, I was like, we learned all right. It's shocking what we learned.
Yeah. Now what do we do?
So now what do we do? Were we prepared and set up at that point? My recollection was that we weren't fully ready to go for an order of that size.
No, Mark, you can expand on that because we had to then go back to Tyson and do that whole thing.
Yeah, and our bottler wasn't, really. I mean, he was a small outfit too, so he wasn't, catered to make anything real fast, real quick. So it was the first few times it was once we had the labels, had everything. It was I literally hand applied. I was the one in the line doing that. We all went in and helped him, and we were in there from till 1 o'clock in the morning out there just cranking out stuff to fit in his line, and we're hand labeling every single bottle.
Wow.
To get
That's
it
why they're all
done.
crooked.
Yeah.
Ones.
Yeah,
That's why I look like that.
and that's why my hands were all gummed up and everything.
Wasn't there some worry too that like the order would get too big because there's a difference between how much our bottler could produce tax wise? I mean, there's a whole story around just that too with micro versus macro. Yeah.
The issue is just, it was a big order. Like Mark's saying, our bottler at the time, he wasn't built for that yet.
Yeah.
And we're coming in with this big order, and initially it didn't sound like it was going to be a problem, but then as we're getting into it and actually going, he's like, well, I think I can get half of it done. And we're like,
Writing checks your butts can't cash.
we can't,
Like, hold on, we can't.
doesn't work, right? We got to hit this number. And that's why we were there as long as we had to be. And, I know I brought my kids in to help, and I know anybody that could do it.
Friends
we were doing all
and
that
family,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, you're kind of at that pivot point where like, how much do we want to invest in having a product ready to go without having an actual avenue to sell it?
Yeah.
And you're kind of at this pivot point.
Right.
And then you get this order brought in.
Yeah.
And then the key is, and that's when I remember my original kind of the idea of me launching the brand essentially publicly was through my show with Paul Allen and K-Fan on Fridays. When I pop in there, I still go on there and Friday Football Feast. It's been something I've done for years when I played. And my hope was to say, hey, can I get some airtime with Paul Allen? Just talk about what I'm doing. And I remember it was training camp. We had the Total Wine, our first sort of signing at Total Wine. I think it was in Minnetonka.
Yeah.
And we were going to basically announce this company to the world right during the start of football season, right during training camp. We're on the perch over at Twin City Orthopedics Center. And we ended up talking about, and I thought I might get 30 seconds to say, hey, I'm part of this new company. It's a vodka company, Grey Duck Spirits. And it turns out I get a lot more airtime, and we talk about it. And when you get Paul Rowland, sometimes he's incredible. He's obviously one of the best in the world to do it, and he was interested. I just retired the year before, so there's a lot of interest in my brand, and I think we learned pretty quickly at that first signing that there was something there with Vikings fans. And I just remember it being the overwhelming response when I walked into Total Wine Minnetonka was like, this is bigger than I think we all expected. And it was a fun way to launch the brand. But what I didn't know, actually until just before this episode started, was the language I used on air with K-Fan was almost got us in some hot water. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Well, two things with that bottler at the time, because we pushed him hard to get it done, and God bless him for making it happen. Right? So we get it done, and the whole time we're all excited, like, oh man, this order, we got to get it fulfilled. He goes, guys, he's been doing this for a bit. He goes, just slow down. He goes, this is your first order. It's going to be a while before you see a second one. So, now we get to you going on K-Fan and making the big announcement. Well, you said something about, we're distilling this, and somebody from the state heard say that, and they thought it was being distilled by Grey Duck.
Right.
Didn't know we were using a bottle.
Which would be illegal.
Yeah, we didn't have a license. So all of a sudden, as we're making our drops to Total Wine to, get ready for you to come in and do the signing, our first drop, we're getting a call from our bottler going, I just got a call from the state. You're going to have to pull all the product. You don't have a license. They're going to shut me down. I mean, he is going off the deep end. He is, because it's his business. And I would be the same way. And he was like really worked up, and rightfully so. And it all got figured out. It was just a misunderstanding on what you had said versus what was actually happening. But when you get a call from the state and they're telling you they're going to shut you down, you pay attention.
But it was a huge roller coaster. So we went into, before that day, before you went on PA, I handed you the bottle, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get any time. But then it goes on, and we're literally listening in the parking lot at one of the Total Wines, ready to stock this place. And then immediately, and we're with our one-man distributor at the time, and immediately, once you start talking about it, his phone is just ringing off the hook. He's getting calls all over the place. So it's like, okay, we're on a super high.
Yep.
Where, this thing is going really well. We got, this is probably bigger than we thought we were. And then, 20 minutes later, we get a call from, our bottler, and he's all, he's freaking out, like rightfully so. But it's like, then you go down to, okay, what kind of,
what did we do wrong?
What did we just do?
There's a hole in the boat.
Yeah. Well, it's almost kind of appropriate to tell that story because it's been a little bit about our company at the end of the day. Like that original part of it's kind of a microcosm of the last 8 years of you do take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And we've done that hundreds of times now through our business of what we've learned and what we put your hand on the stove and you don't do that again. Okay, let's go a different direction and try to reinvent ourselves and create products and a lot more to talk about down the road. But I think it's just so funny to hear the origin story and the risk that we did put out there, but also the work that went in to get us to that point where all of a sudden we're in stores. And I walk into Total Wine Minnetonka after all that, and we clear the air on, okay, yep, no, we're good. We're doing things the right way. And then you have a line of our rabid Vikings fans, our Scolders out there. They were so rabid and so excited. And I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And to be able to go through so much product in that first signing, I know Total Wine was happy because they brought us in and took the risk. And then it's like, I think the funniest story now is like, okay, well, where do we go from here? Because we were just told that, okay, probably going to be a while till you get your next order. Well, then what happens?
So we finished that signing, and Jeff pulls us aside from Total Wine, and he goes, guys, I want the same order I just placed again. And we're like, awesome, but we're just thinking our bottler just absolutely freaked out on the first time we got all this done, thinking it's going to be a while, and now we've got to tell him that they need the same order as soon as possible, which is exciting to hear. So we get out in the parking lot after, we're done with the signing. Mark and I are sitting in the car, and we call the bottler, and we're like, hey, just finished up at the signing. He goes, yeah, I heard it went really well. I guess his wife has stopped by and got a bottle signed. And he goes, congratulations, very, very appreciative. And I go, well, Tyson, just wanted to let you know, we talked to Jeff over at Total Wine. He wants the same order that we just did.
Next week.
And Tyson on the other end, he goes, no shit. So
stock up, baby.
We kind of bring him down, but we got it done, and kudos to him, our bottler, to get it finished up for us. But yeah, that was a funny conversation now, but we got through.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk a little bit about the politics of that, and I think it's there's all the good, but there's also bad when you set and I've heard this several different times throughout the 8 years I've been doing this. 9 years have been doing this, whatever it is now, is, okay, you launched with Total Wine. It's a big box store. It's nationwide. It's not local. We're a local product. So just like with any success story, there's always scars to that. And I know for a fact, even to this day, there's people that can't let that go. Mm-hmm. And maybe talk a little bit about the start of a company. When somebody gives you an opportunity, you can't say no to that opportunity. Right. And now we've built relationships across the course of the state and a bunch of retailers and a bunch of on-site bars and restaurants. But maybe talk a little bit about that, and then maybe kind of how that maybe set our sail and kind of understand of the politics of this industry.
Well, I think, one of the things that happened too, a positive thing, is Paul Kapsick from the MMBA. He was a big advocate for us. So he heard you on the radio, and he's immediately spreading the word. So all those MMBA members are calling, and I think that's why Revman's phone was blowing up that day. It was,
and Paul runs a municipal liquor board, or all the municipals in the state.
Yeah,
right. So I was at a municipal last night, down in Lakeville, Minnesota, and just an incredible response, almost like the response like the first time we launched this thing, which was awesome. So shout out Lakeville, that was incredible to be there last night.
But Paul did that, and his membership group, they've supported us from day one in a big way. But to your point, there was also local, metro stores that were like, well, why didn't they start with us, or why didn't they come to us first? And quite honestly, it wasn't intentional by any means. We were just trying to learn that day,
right?
And it ended up being an order that we never expected to happen. And it was just
one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you're down that path.
And gave us an opportunity to get the product out in front of people, and resulted in you being on the air and all the things that fell in place. Right. But yeah, it did cause some issues initially, not intentionally, but I think we've worked through most of those, and thankfully, and now that's no longer that much of an issue.
Yeah, I think it's about, at the end of the day, when we started this thing, it was about building relationships with people across the state of Minnesota. Whether you're a customer who's buying a product, or you're a retailer, or you're a bar owner, and there's places we haven't been. There's people we haven't seen. There's hands we haven't shaken that we want to connect with. And I think at the core of our business, I feel like that's our sweet spot. Like being at an on-site last night and meeting with people, is they love that we are who we are and how we do things. So it's just about continuing to build those bridges and continue to grow. So we launch in Total Wine, we get the reorder. Now we have this issue of, kind of take one step further, is, well, how do we grow faster? And how do we get distribution changed and different? And do we need to? And that's a conversation for a few episodes down the line. But it's certainly been fun to have you guys on today. This is just two of the crew that have kind of been the nuts and bolts of this company for a long, long time, since the genesis. And these guys work their tails off. And I think the best part, the most, I think from my standpoint, as I'm not in on the day-to-day operation, on all the nitty-gritty, but you guys' ability to educate yourself on stuff you didn't know and believe in yourself is, like, to me, the most mind-boggling and impressive thing you guys have done. And so it's amazing what we've done. It's amazing what we've been able to accomplish together. And it's been a fun ride.
It has.
Not always.
It's been a ride.
Mark and I still like each other. We're off together. So.
Yeah, I think that might be a final question too. Is just like, can you really think back to what you did know compared to what you know now? It's like learning a whole nother trade.
You want me to just look at our label? It's we've become more polished, and look, we're not the first company to put a celebrity behind a brand and launch it.
I love you still call me celebrity.
But we all realize and we knew this in the insurance business, that's all in relationships. And that's what we wanted to cultivate through this and build on those. And, we executed properly, and you build and surround yourself with the right people, by your side and around you.
Yep.
You have a better chance of being successful. And I think that's what we did pretty well.
Well, one thing about,
quick. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing about this team, and I don't know if it was by accident or if it was thought out, but everybody's got their different kind of lanes of strength, from marketing to logistics and operations to sales and relationships and just PR and, having a great reputation, which I think is huge. And even Jamie, our other partner on the sales side too, it's like it kind of all fell together where it is the right team because everyone has their core strengths and they're different from each other, which I think is a very important thing in any partnership or business, that you have those complementary skills. So I don't know, was that a conscious thing, or were you just piecing things together?
It's just,
Don't take credit for something you do.
No, it's like you're just digging. It's like, okay, we like this concept with Kyle. Well, that doesn't work. Is there something similar that would line up? We know we wanted to give back with the brand, which is why we wanted to involve Kyle. Well, then Mark knows you through, and it's like, okay, well, and then I didn't know, honestly, when I knew Chad as the football player, I really didn't know much about your foundation work.
Right.
So it's like, well, this lines up awesome. That you're in the same mindset. You're already there.
Yep.
That's what we want to do with this brand, and you were already doing it in a big way. So it just fell into place because that didn't work with Kyle, and we ended up finding Chad, and it's been awesome.
Well, it's a very dynamic group that we had. It's like we all, we don't think the same, which I think is a benefit. Like that you're getting to is now we see it from different angles, and you can make a better decision by doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Well, there you have it. Episode 2 of Grey Duck Unfeathered with Mark and Jerry. This is a good one. Make sure to like and comment. We'd love to answer some questions and people that are following this. Make sure you share it too across all your channels because we want to get this small business story out there for other small business owners that are doing the same thing and the same grind. So thanks for checking in, tuning in, and stay tuned for episode 3. It'll be a fun journey. Thanks, guys.